Hey guys, welcome back to Tremor Trails. Today we were up in Brighton, Colorado, hanging out with Kevin over at HaloLifts. Came by to say hey, I was in the area, and I actually ran across a product a while back on the F150 Tremor forum, thanks to Factor for turning me onto this product. And I asked Kevin if he had any in stock, and he actually did. So today's video is going to be all about the RAS system, or the Road Active Suspension System. This is a really cool product that will actually lift your truck up, give you better drivability when you are towing. You're going to lose the sag, and we're going to put it to its test out on some hard trails to see if it really handles off-roading capabilities. So I'm going to give you my honest reviews and thoughts on this. Stick around. This is a really cool product. Let's go dive into it. Now, full disclosure, this video has taken me about a month and a half to do. Not edit, but compile all the different stuff into it. And I want to start out by saying that RAS never made the claim that you can off-road with this suspension package. Essentially, this is built for towing and getting rid of that sag when you are carrying heavy stuff off of your tow hitch. However, for me personally, I saw an opportunity with this system. Essentially, when we're out for a week or 2 weeks, I noticed that the back of the truck does slightly sag a little bit from all the gear that we're hauling around. On top of that, coming into late summer and early fall, I'm doing something drastic on the back of the truck to make our overlanding trips more enjoyable and even better than they are right now. So one of the main selling points for me with this system, if it worked, was that I would be able to have a little bit more strength back there and I wouldn't get as much sag. All right, so we have a demo that Kevin shows everybody kind of what the RAS system is about, and I figured it'd be easy to just really quick run through what exactly is the RAS system and why do we want it, what are the benefits of it?
Sure. Yeah, so right here's the demo that TJ is talking about. This RAS system goes around your leaf springs. It kind of squeezes your leaf springs together so it reduces the squat of your truck. These guys made this because of towing or extra weight. So with that, it adds more stabilization to the rear end when you have extra weight or you're towing a lot of weight behind your vehicle. Also, it improves handling because with that, now your rear end is sitting more down on the ground on pavement, trails, whatever you're doing, so your rear end's not trying to come out from underneath you. It's maintenance free. Look at it, it's just nuts and bolts. That's all it is. It's not airbags that could blow out. You're not airing it up, airing it down, all that stuff. So this is awesome if you just want to throw it on and just leave it. You don't have to maintenance it.
Yeah, and installation, we had a lift here, but installation took all of 20 minutes, if that. You can do this in your driveway very easily. Can you run us through kind of the setup on how easy it is to install this?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, as you can see, it's easy to set up. It just goes right over your leaf springs. Right here, it wraps around the top. Down here, you can see this is where your axle is. Wrap it around, and then it just sits on top of your leaf springs. How you tighten everything down, you don't want to tighten everything fully. You want to use these shims if you want to go not as high, or if you want to go a little bit shallower, you can use these different shims. After you have the measurement that you want, you tighten these end nuts, and then you're good to go. It's maintenance free. You don't have to do anything with it after it's been installed.
I know a lot of guys have been taking them on and off because they're not towing as much or not going off-roading. So it is something that you can do. It doesn't have to be permanent on your leafs if for some reason you don't want that. From what I know so far though, I like the ride already. And I've driven it several miles now, messing around with it, kind of seeing how it feels. The back end is completely planted to the truck. And obviously with the HaloLift setup, the mountain package that we run, the truck already feels planted. Now it feels even more planted, but it's not bumpy. It's still not riding like a truck. Can you talk a little bit about the spacers, what's going on with these bump stops? Because that was kind of confusing. I didn't understand why they were doing that. What is the purpose for that?
Sure. So why they provide these in the kit, and it's just these little spacers that go against your frame, and then so this mounts to the frame and your bump stop sits underneath. So when you raise up the rear end really high, then you're losing that clearance in between your axle and your bump stop. So when you raise it up, you could smash your wheel up to your wheel well, all that. So that's why the bump stops are on your solid axle in the rear. So when these are sitting here, it pushes this bump stop down this much, so then you have this much more for the wheel and everything not to come up inside your fender.
RAS system has been around since the 90s, I believe, right?
Yeah, 98.
98. But with the Tremor, we had a few issues that arose, and essentially, well, Kev, you can tell us a quick story about it. What was happening?
RAS reached out to us because they knew that we specialize in Tremors, as all you guys know. Where we're having issues with was the spacers. Somehow the middle bolt for the spacers mounted up into was a little far off the normal F-150s, and they figured that out, so they reached out to us. We gave them a whole bunch of measurements. We gave some measurements off of TJ's truck here, off of my personal Tremor and a couple other customers that reach out to them directly. But yeah, we were in direct contact with Raz on making these spacers so they mount directly right up into your Tremor.
Yeah, if you have an F-150, you're not going to have an issue, but us Tremor guys, we had the issue with the actual collar was smacking onto the bracket itself. And so HaloLifts and of course the guys over at Raz, they came up with this. So now this is actually, you know, pretty much a Tremor specific piece.
Yeah.
Woo! We finally got something that's ours. All right, so we're going to really test this thing out. I'm going to tweak it out and probably spend a couple weeks with it, and we'll dive further into the review. But before that, do you have these in stock? How have they been selling for you, and what has been the feedback from customers so far?
Sure. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we have installed them on plenty of F-150s. I mean, we do keep the HD ones in stock. We just feel that that's the best all around. They have the standard duty instead of the heavy duty. We just feel like here at HaloLifts, we love the heavy duty, even on just daily driving. So that's the ones we keep in stock. We have them in stock all the time. You can just order right off our website, and it'll be shipped right to you.
And then maybe if you're really nice and you mention us, maybe, depending on what mood he's in, you might get a discount.
There you go.
You might. All right, let's go put this thing on the trail and see how it does. Okay, so there's a quick rundown of the RAS system. Now, for me personally, I don't really tow a whole lot, especially with the Tremor now. The Tremor is not a daily driver anymore. This Tremor is out on trails going across the country, and other than that, it's sitting in the driveway just looking beautiful. With that being said, however, though, I do have a 21-foot bass boat that I tow over to the lake to get it on the lake. I don't have a boat dock. And I have a massive cargo trailer that usually goes behind the back of a tour bus that is super heavy. So I was able to test both of these things, and I'll say this, that the boat, it was negligible. I didn't notice any drop at all, honestly, when I put the boat on it. Obviously, with a 6,000 pound cargo trailer, I noticed that there was some sag back into the truck, but I drove it up and down the street for a couple minutes just to kind of see if it felt squirrely or anything, and it didn't. RAS did what it said it would do. I definitely felt more in control of the back end. It was planted firmly. So for its main purpose, it 100% does what it says it does. However, for me, it wasn't for the towing capabilities of why I was so interested in the RAS system. I've looked into putting leaf springs on the back of the truck, and I've talked to a few mechanics that I value their opinion, as well as a few different people. And really, when you put a leaf on the back of the truck, there are certain things that can happen or not happen. Some people have luck with it, other people don't. The ride could be affected. You could have harmonic imbalances where everything's just really squirrely. And to be honest with you, it's way above my pay grade, and it's a lot of money to go and try and put a new leaf spring package on the back of my truck. All I'm looking for was a couple more inches of lift. On top of that, it gave me the benefit of putting another 1.5 inches into the front of the truck. So my overall clearance actually raised up 1.5 inches. Anytime you can get a little bit more body clearance, the better when you're navigating hard off-camber obstacles. And the last thing that really impressed me about if this system would work is that because we are compressing the leaf spring, the back end is going to be more firm. And the main culprit, or the main problem that we have with full-size trucks, is that this section right here tends to get the most damage because of our wheelbase. And you're coming off a rock ledge or something and you are smashing down onto that no matter how you try and navigate it. So I figured if my back end was a little bit more firm when I came off of that rock ledge, instead of it compressing too much and really smacking into the bottom, maybe it would lessen that blow. Took the truck out to Moab, and I wanted to put it on some trails that I knew the Tremor would probably struggle with in some aspects to really test out how this system worked off-road. From the get-go of it, I could definitely tell that the back end was planted to the ground. I was getting better traction in certain aspects. The ride was still negligible. I wasn't noting much difference, but I was noting that the back end was way stiffer. Coming off of rock ledges or climbing up rock ledges, the back end just seemed to stay up higher, and that's exactly what I was looking for with this setup. One of the main concerns I had was articulation. How much articulation am I going to lose because I am compressing that leaf spring? And for me personally, I didn't notice much of anything. My other main concern was how much drop was I going to lose because once again, we're compressing that spring. And also, I didn't really notice much of a drop. Now, one side note, I have not tested how much drop we actually lose, but I'm actually going to be taking the truck back up pretty quick to do some more work, and I will take the system off and I will measure that. Once I get that data, I will pin it in the comments. That's just one thing I didn't film. So all in all, I was actually pretty impressed with the way that it handled off-road. I didn't lose articulation, at least none that I could tell. I wasn't losing a lot of drop. The tires were still staying firm and everything seemed to be okay. That being said, however, I did run into a couple issues. Okay, so there's the bump stop, and you see the bracket is touching, the bump stop overhang is touching the bracket, and that's what's happening, is it's slamming down. And also you can see right here that I busted my sensor off. So like I just mentioned, this video has been months in the making, and really this is a non-moot point now, but I wanted to be completely honest and open with you guys of how we kind of got to this situation. As you can see, the bump stop collar was smacking the crap out of those brackets, and that was one of my fears. On top of that, I snapped off the leveler that actually adjusts the lights level when you have weight in the back of your truck. So I was pretty upset about that, but in all fairness, RES immediately had jumped on this situation. Something that happened with Ford, in between 21 and 22, there was this weird window where for some reason Ford started putting the bump stop in a different spot. So the old RES pucks would work just fine on certain trucks, and on other trucks like mine, it would not. They immediately got back to the drawing board to try and figure out where this shimmy should go, and they thought they had it figured out. We found out that no, we don't. There was actually another place where they were putting the bump stop. It's kind of confusing. Long story short, the problem that you just saw with the collar being smashed into the bracket does not happen anymore. RES has fixed that. Depending on what truck model you have, from a regular F-150 to a Tremor, they have solved the problem of that bracket smashing. But I just wanted to be 100% honest with you. I was pretty disappointed immediately that the bracket was getting smashed and beat up when I was on those trails. Not only that, but losing the light leveler was a little frustrating. That part is pretty expensive. Okay, so regarding the light leveler, the reason that the light leveler broke was not due to the RES system. It was actually due to the way that we installed it. We just kind of missed it, I'll be honest. We were hanging out, putting the system together, you know, talking, and it's just something that we failed to do. Nobody's fault, it's just is what it is. The way that you fix this so that your light leveler does not get hit when you're doing terrain is simple. All you do is you move it up a couple bolts. If you look at this picture right here, the picture that we're looking at is actually on the passenger side, but you can see that our bolts were in the furthest position. Where you see this bolt right here, that bolt was the culprit for smashing into the light leveler. All you have to do is simply move it 1 or 2 holes and the light leveler will be clear. So as you can see, we just installed it wrong. That's all there is to it. It's a non-issue when it comes to the RAS system as far as hitting that light leveler. Your light leveler will be clear whether you're in a Lariat or in a Tremor. I did, however, run back up to HaloLifts, and me and Eric went through the problem, and I did a couple little more modifications just to make sure that I had full clearance, so this is what we did. All right, so we're back over at Halo, and like I mentioned in the video, one of the main issues I had with my setup was the light leveling bracket that's on the back of your truck, which is right here. There's a little arm. What was happening was the bracket itself was smashing into that, and when we did top of the world, like you saw, it was a pretty rough trail and it snapped off. We could obviously buy a whole new part if we wanted and try something else, but I'm just going to put a screw through the little plastic bracket and see how that holds up. Eric's used to fixing trucks because he owns a Chevy, remember guys, so he's right at home with us.
So easy way to get this guy off is you look here, it's got a little T, it's going to have those clips. You can take a flathead screwdriver, just pry those 2 tabs up gently, the whole arm will slip out. Little arm comes off with a 8mm wrench, so you can just take off the whole assembly. Drilled through it, ran a bolt. Keep in mind the ball we left in there, so it's a little hard to drill, but if you have enough of your tab left over, you can pull that ball out, drill it, and then we just put it all back together so it's at least a somewhat solid unit. Yep. Just pushes in, clicks, line it up.
So as you can see, we had a couple little modifications that we did to it. Now, some people might ask, why don't you just put airbags on the back of the truck and go about it? Because airbags, A, are kind of expensive. You got to air them up, air them down nonstop. There is a little bit of maintenance involved with them. On top of that, you do lose a little bit of articulation, I think more than what you lose with the RAS system. So for me, going to airbags just wasn't really a great option. So let's break it down really simple. The pros to this system are A, it's super easy to install. You can do it in your driveway if you want to. It's fairly easy to uninstall as well. There's a couple guys that take them on and off all the time. Mine are staying on permanently. I just don't have a need to take them on and off. Like I said, the whole reason for me wanting them was I wanted that extra 2 inches of lift and to be able to put more weight on the back of the truck without a sag. Price point is extremely fair on this. I mean, if you're looking at a leaf spring, you're looking at labor on that as well. You know, this is kind of a cheap man's way to get that extra added lift, and that's why it impressed me. Price point, you just can't beat it. They're really maintenance free. There's nothing you need to do to them. Once they're set, they're set. You're done with it. There's no grease fittings or anything like that. It's just a spring and it's on the back of the truck. And really the final thing is, on top of that, it does what it claims it does. It gives you better stability, it gives you the lift when you're towing things, and the ride is negligible. I honestly really couldn't tell a difference between having them on and having them off. My cons on the system may be a little bit biased because what I was trying to do with this setup is off-road with it. This isn't necessarily an off-road package. You can attempt it if you want. The main thing being that I only had these on for about 2 weeks and already there was surface rust all over the bolts that were not painted. So I'm not sure what kind of bolts they're using to apply the system to, but rust was already an issue with my hardware. I don't know if that's going to affect it in the long term, but for buying something and then immediately having it rust, that was kind of surprising to me. Obviously towing, I didn't have any real cons with it. It did exactly as it said it would do. Now off-roading is obviously different. The bracket being smashed into the bump stop, that was an issue. I don't even know if I need bump stops on the truck anymore. I'm gonna keep them there just to be safe. If I get crazy, my tires are probably gonna smash all the way into the top of the wheel well before I ever touch that bump stop. We tried to tweak out the truck the second time I was up at HaloLifts, and we could not get the tire to compress enough to either hit the top of the wheel well or to hit the bump stop. So I'm still not sure about that one, but the con was definitely that the collar was smacking up against that bracket, and of course I did some damage to the leveler. But that being said, RAS immediately addressed the situation, and really that is now a moot point. I did have to saw off a little bit more of that collar because I still felt like the shimmy that we put in there didn't give it quite enough clearance, but that's because I'm set up to kind of do an extreme type of obstacle if I ever have to. One final con that I have not experienced personally, but I've read in the forums some guys are dealing with, is that they cannot get the truck to level out perfectly when you're putting these springs on. One side might be a little bit higher than the other because it's not a super scientific thing. It's just a spring and you're putting that little washer in there to see what your weight is. For me personally, I haven't noticed it, and even if my truck is slightly off, that doesn't bug me in the slightest. We're talking very minuscule. So for me, I'm not too nitpicky about that. I mean, when is the truck ever perfectly level on any kind of terrain whatsoever? With all that being said, and the time that I've had on this system now, doing some off-roading trails, some hard technical stuff, pulling some different trailers and everything, I think this is a product that you might want to look into. I am not sponsored by these guys. I don't get a kickback or anything like that. They didn't ask me to review it. Like I said, I knew Kevin had some over there at HaloLifts. I saw some of the guys talking about it on the forum, and I wanted to try it out myself. Maybe if you're looking for something to give you that added benefit of towing, or to give you that 2 inches of lift in the back to help you not sag when you are loaded down with overlanding gear or whatever, this might be a system to check out. There is a link down below to HaloLifts website for it, and I did leave a link to Amazon as well in case you're interested in checking this out, researching a little bit more, and maybe installing it on your truck. Other than that, guys, all in all, I thought it was a pretty successful test. I'm going to continue to leave it on the back of my truck, continue to see how it works as we continue through this year. And if I find any really negative things, or if something happens, I'll be more than happy to pin a comment or maybe even do another video about it. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up down below. I will do my best to answer it for you. If I don't know the answer, we'll go find somebody that does. Other than that, guys, we really sincerely thank you for watching these videos, and we truly hope to see you guys out there on the trails. Bye.